Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind, the Transform Your Life radio, podcast, and television show. I'm your host, Life Coach Renee Young, and sitting in the guest chair today is Dr. Fred Moss, author, speaker, and transformation coach. And Dr. Fred and I are going to be talking today on the topic, the Creative 8 Mindset. Welcome, Dr. Fred.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Yes, I am going to enjoy our conversation because it has to do with mindset. And I love mindset. Obviously, that's what the show is called. So, for you listening, we're going to be, diving a little deeper into mindset today. And we're going to be talking about the Creative 8 mindset. So make sure you stay until the end. All right, so let me give you a brief bio on Dr. Fred. Dr. Fred Moss, MD, is the foremost expert on delivering your true voice into the world so that it can heal, because your voice matters. Your voice can heal. Dr. Fred has been actively practicing in the mental health field internationally for over 40 years. And as a psychiatrist, has been an unwavering stand for the transformation of mindset. He's a firm believer that conversation, communication, creativity, and human connection are ultimately at the source of all healing. Of all conditions in all fields. Along with being a highly successful restorative transformational coach, his signature technology, True Voice Podcasting, is for people who are ready to take their lives back by speaking their authentic messages into the world. TVP is designed to guide people from all walks of life who are ready to rediscover the confidence and courage necessary to bring their full and real humanity back into all areas of their lives. So that is amazing. All right. So, as a way of introduction, Dr. Fred, can you share with us your journey to becoming a psychiatrist and a transformation coach?
Sure. So, I thank you for having me and thank you for doing such a nice job with the intro. It reminds me who I am sometimes just to hear my own. I have several intros out there. And so, I listen to them like, oh, yeah, who is this guy? And then I realize that it's
Well, I'm
me.
glad you like.
I was born to be a communicator. I was born to bring healing and joy to the world. And I think probably many of us were, but really my family was in a fair amount of disarray. They tell me a fair amount of chaos. I had two brothers, 10 and 14 years older than me. I still have two brothers, 10 and 14 years older than me. And the hope was that I would be able to really come in and make a difference, come in and bring joy and pleasure to a family in need. And so my whole full-time job has been, since that first second of arrival, to bring communication, pleasure, and joy to others who are in need of being reminded about their true self, about what really it is, what's the point, why are we here? I became enchanted and fully interested and committed to becoming a communicator very early on, probably before kindergarten. And
Really?
my brothers taught me how to be very precocious. I knew how to read, I knew how to write, I knew how to, do math before I even entered kindergarten. And so I was sort of on the outside. Most of my kindergarten friends didn't know how to do any of that.
No?
They were just kind of throwing blocks and picking their nose and stuff. And I wanted to read Henry Huggins. But the truth is,
Oh
I
my
was
goodness.
also throwing blocks and picking my nose. I just wanted to read too.
Mm-hmm.
Communication wasn't going to be taught in elementary school. I realized that soon after. They told me to be quiet and they told me to sit over there and not voice my real self. And I learned how to sort of be quiet, although no teacher that ever had me in elementary school forgets having Fred in their class for sure. I went forward and really thought, okay, I'm going to learn how to communicate, but I'll probably be in junior high. So I waited and waited until junior high when the big kids, would teach me how to communicate. But when I got to junior high, that was also a problem. It was, I was disappointed and disillusioned. So high school must be the place where you learn how to communicate. And so I hung in there and went to high school, and no, it didn't really happen there either, did it? And
No,
I was
no.
kind of being told to be quiet, and no one really cared what I had to say inside the classroom. Now, outside the classroom, I was able to communicate effectively. And I did most of my learning, most of my education certainly came outside of school. But I
Mm,
decided that I would go to university, and my favorite university, because it had bred into me and I loved their football helmets and it was close, was the University of Michigan. So I
mm.
went to University of Michigan, really hoping that, of course, there I would finally become a communicator. But again, in Ann Arbor, I loved Ann Arbor, great place to communicate, but not at the University of Michigan. That was not communication. I was really just being asked to watch a professor do what they do, and
Yeah,
uh, and then like regurgitate it back.
yeah.
Ultimately, I dropped out of school and I did what anyone in my age group might have done. I got on a Greyhound bus and went around the country and tried to figure out what my life was about. And I
Mm,
found out a little bit about what my life was, but I didn't have a job. So then I decided to come back to college and tried one more time, dropped out again. Now,
mm.
this is where my career really started because I came home, told my mom that I'm never going back to university again. And she said, "Well, that's okay, Fred. Well, you have to get a job now, and moms will do that." So she got me an application, and I started working with adolescent boys at a state hospital, state mental health facility.
Really?
And there, I was finally getting paid to communicate. And that's all I was doing. I was communicating with these wonderful human beings who were now living in a state hospital, and we were healing each other through communication. It was really fun and really a great job. Afternoon shift, we got to take field trips and play softball and all the cool stuff that I did with these kids. The thing I didn't like was the way psychiatry was treating these kids. We would call the psychiatrist and say Jimmy's up too late or Timmy and Tommy got in a fight. And he would come down, and after 3 seconds talking to the kid and maybe 6 seconds talking to us, he'd take out his weapon, it looked a little bit like this,
Wow.
and he would write something in the chart. And then we'd have to go get Timmy and hold him down while we injected him full of very high powered sedatives to put him out of his misery for the next 12 or 24 hours. And if Timmy didn't
Wow.
say another word for 24 hours, we would call that a success. Now,
Wow.
that's still happening in all the state hospitals around this country and mostly around the world too. So don't think that it's like we've grown past that because we haven't. It's still going on. I made it my business to become a psychiatrist at that point. I was going to
Mm,
become a psychiatrist and bring communication back because that I knew the communication healed. So took in a big inhale, and 13 years later, there I was. I graduated in the university at Northwestern University as a psychiatrist and did my
mm.
residency in Cincinnati and really started being a psychiatrist. But in the meantime, Prozac had been introduced to the world, and Prozac was a medication that really, you might recall, it was really just like a medicine for changed the whole paradigm of psychiatry, biological psychiatry, chemical imbalance. And now the idea was that a psychiatrist, like if you ask most people what's the difference between a psychiatrist and a psychologist, they all have the same answer, which is a psychiatrist prescribes medicine. But that's actually the last thing I wanted to do as a psychiatrist. But now it was my typecast, it was what I was
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
For the next 30 something years, I wrote over 100,000 medication prescriptions. I saw over 40,000 patients who called me their doctor. And it was very difficult because every time I wrote a prescription, my heart would wrench just a little, or my soul would sacrifice. And sometimes not just a little, sometimes large. In 2006, I finally decided that I could no longer do that. It was 15 years after I started.
Hmm.
And I started taking people off their diagnosis and taking them off their medications and seeing how they did. Now, I know that sounds kind of radical. It's kind of interesting that we're more concerned about taking people off of medicine than giving it to them. It's just amazing. Us humans are, we're so interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the
So
society,
it's
right?
like, oh, you did what? You're radical.
Mm,
I took away stuff that was making them worse. And so I began to really see that they got better. And it was really there that I started becoming a healer. I call that my true voice moment when I really started becoming a healer. It's no longer just a doctor, but a healer. And I began communicating with all my patients a little bit more, a little bit more. until I really knew that I was back to being little Freddie, who was pretty sure that communication and connection was the point here on Earth.
What's up, y'all? I'm Percy Miller, Master P. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, simply have a product or service that you sell, then listen up. If you have under 20 employees and suffer a reduction in your income due to the pandemic, then you are eligible to receive $5,000 in marketing assistance. To boost your business with Westwood Marketing Group. To get started, text the word pandemic, PANDEMIC, to 833-942-5960.
And over the last 15 years, since 2006, I've really been just edging myself forward to being a stand for communication and connection. And my practice has evolved over time. I've done work all over the world, a lot of telepsychiatry and a lot of utilization review. And I've been in every single corner of American psychiatry, usually as a leader, and really attempting, sometimes without much success, to inject communication as the core source of all healing. Eventually, I set up Welcome to Humanity. Welcome to Humanity is my brand name. That's where you'll find me, at the welcometohumanity.net.
Okay.
That's where my main website is. And it's self-explanatory. It just says all of the experiences that we're having as humans are to be embraced, including the ones that are miserable and painful. Like, just get that none of us know what we're doing at all, period. Even the ones who act like they don't. And, really start getting that we're all in this together. We don't know what we're doing, and it's better off when we're with each other. And when we are with each other and really resonate with each other, that's where healing really starts. And now I'm actually a restorative transformational coach, and I'm a podcast teacher, and I'm an expert speaker and a podcast guest. I have my own podcast, and I am, finally in line with who I really came here to be again, after 50 years of trying out some other stuff.
Well, that's amazing. That you felt that you knew that you wanted to communicate as in kindergarten, I guess, because you have older brothers,
right?
And maybe they didn't treat you like a baby, that,
Right.
You were able to communicate. But I want to circle back to a couple of things. So why did your mom get you, or how did your mom get you a job in the mental health field? Did you do some work with that in college? That was the first question.
Well, it was easy enough to get a job in the mental health field. My mom was already a social worker.
Okay.
And so she got me and she didn't quite get me the job. She got me an application for Fairlawn Center, which was a state mental health facility, a civil service job.
Okay.
And there was really two jobs available, by the way. There was a job at the civil service, at the state hospital, Fairlawn Center. And there was another job that was available at the unemployment office. And the reason I took the mental health job was because it was opening up earlier. It had nothing to do. I could easily be an unemployment expert. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing, because that's usually how, if you're here with a purpose, that's how God directs you. Okay. But the second question that I have here is, I've been in the space a lot recently, and I don't remember how, but of talking therapy. So when you decided to take your patients off of medications and you said communicate, are you saying that, let's say that someone is on Prozac because, they want to, the Prozac settles them down of some sort. So are you saying that if people really heard them and listened to them, that's why they don't need the medications? Where are you coming from with that?
Yeah, that's an important question. So the first thing I want to say to all the listeners is, if you have found something that works and it has to do with medication in your diagnosis, by all means, please don't switch.
Okay.
I mean, if you got something that's really working, I'm not telling you to switch. I'm really not. I mean, if you got something that's working anywhere in this world, you should keep doing it.
Okay.
So let's make that really clear. Okay. This is for people who really know that they're not living their ultimate optimal life. These are for people who, if you, like, I originally started taking people off medicine who had been on medicine for a long time and who thought that they were steady but weren't really performing at a super high level. when I took them off their Prozac or the medications like that, what would happen is they would find themselves again coming in touch with their own feelings, coming in touch with their own emotions in ways that have been muted over the years.
Okay.
And so that, when they got in touch with themselves, we could learn that they didn't even have a diagnosis to first place. And in many cases, the medicines and the treatment were really perpetuating the actual symptoms they were marketed to treat. So,
Okay.
that when you start really looking at that and we pull people off of their diagnosis, because you can't just pull people off their medicine. It's medicine's not the problem. It's
Okay.
the idea that we all think there's something wrong with us. And then
Okay.
we get confirmation that there's something wrong with us. And then we
Right.
need so-called medication. The
Hmm.
truth is, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. You're making it through the world like any of us, and you're just as confused and, at times, or fearful at other times, or anxious or depressed, or,
Hmm.
you make as many mistakes, or you hurt people, or something. That's called being human. So
Right.
when we can wash that out and really get people to see that mental, people are like, oh no, I have a diagnosis. It's interesting. In psychiatry, first of all, a psychiatrist can't get paid unless he gives you a diagnosis.
Right. Yeah.
If he writes no diagnosis, he won't get paid.
It's good. Right. 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 Right.
So there's a major incentive to diagnose every single person who comes into their office, number
Hmm.
one. Number two, it's also the only field in all of medicine, and I've tried to look for others, where if you come into the office thinking there might be something wrong with you, and the doctor says that there's nothing wrong with you, then you
So
get
disappointed.
totally furious. Can you
Yeah.
imagine if you went to the heart doctor and he says you're okay, and then you get mad at him?
You get mad. Right. Right. Right.
This is a field where when we get a diagnosis, it helps us relinquish responsibility for the parts of our life that we don't like about ourselves. And there are plenty of parts of life that we don't like about ourselves.
Right.
But if we can blame that on ADHD or social phobia or post-traumatic stress disorder or major depression, bipolar disorder, autistic spectrum disorder, narcissistic personality disorder,
Wow.
if we're going to name those and
Right.
call that our reason for being a jerk,
Right.
Myrna, if you want to take responsibility for the mistakes I make for the rest of my life, I'll give that to you, and then I'm not responsible anymore. It's like
Hmm.
it takes courage to yes, you're miserable. I do not mean to diminish the
Hmm.
experiences you're having in life. This isn't like get over it. No, I'm not saying that. What I am saying is, in fact, embrace it as part of being you and this human condition. And don't think of it as a deficiency or a sickness.
But people like to feel good, and these conditions don't make you feel good. I don't know about ADHD, but I mean, all the other ones, you don't feel good. So you want some kind of beta blocker or something to block the symptoms if you're not feeling good. Is not what you say these medications do. But I
Well,
wanted to get to the point where you're saying that they can talk it out.
well, inside of communication, what we really are talking, this isn't about therapy either. Therapy also, the thing about therapy is that therapy also presumes that there's something wrong with the patient. Okay.
Okay.
What this is really about is connection. So it isn't really about just talking it out. It's about connecting with another person at whatever level that takes, resonating, being with another person with your experience.
Mm.
I know that you felt it because everyone I've ever talked to felt it. This idea when you really connect with someone, you go ba-boom, where you're really like on tune, is a remarkably healing moment in life.
But can they connect that way to their psychiatrist?
Well,
Or you're just telling them to talk to anybody, to connect with anybody?
the thing about psychiatry again is that the thing that you certainly can. I mean, I'm a psychiatrist. You can connect with me that way.
Okay.
But the deal with psychiatry is that there's a power gradient. There's this idea that the psychiatrist is okay and you're not.
Right.
That's actually not true. We're both not okay, or we're both okay. But when we look across the table at each other and see our actual humanity, that's where healing starts. When there's a gradient psychiatry up here, patient down there. This perpetuates an ongoing experience of there being something wrong with the patient.
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to undo that and still just have two humans talking together about connection, that I am convinced is where true healing begins.
Okay. So well, that's actually good, because if you're, you walk into the room thinking that there's something wrong with you and you need help. And when my experience is when someone takes that step, it's because they really feel that something is wrong with them. Their life is not going right. It's going in the wrong direction, because most people resist it. You know how many times I've told people to go, to psychiatry, and they don't really want to. They always keep saying there's nothing wrong with me. I don't need it. So when someone actually makes a step to go in there, is because they're actually feeling that maybe they need help. So if the doctor is now saying, hey, there's really nothing wrong with you, that's regular emotions, that's regular life, and we're gonna connect and take you off of meds. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so that's good background information. But what we really want to get to today is about mindset. We're going to be talking about the creative 8 healing through creativity and self-expression, and the creative mindset. So can you, segue into that and how that works?
Sure. So the negative experiences, feeling miserable, feeling pain, feeling, I don't know, feeling uncomfortable with life.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we get, none of us really seek out being uncomfortable. It's not that, it's not like we're looking to be uncomfortable. However, we are so addicted to this idea of comfort being normal. Like we think being comfortable is normal. The truth is, being uncomfortable is totally normal. This is a really crazy world out there. And not only that, humanity is an uncomfortable experience to try to work this together, work it out. What I noticed in writing the book, The Creative 8, was that when we're creating, when we're here to create, our mindset shifts. So we go, so art, music, dancing, singing, drama, cooking, writing, gardening. These are all things that are, when we're creating, they really work to decrease that negative symptomology. They really, or the negative experiences. While we're doing any of those things, the negative experiences dissolve and disappear. So with the creativity, now this is different than if you're listening to music. I want you to be making music. It's different than if you're at an art museum or looking at a beautiful piece of art. I want you to actually be making art. It's different if you're watching Dancing with the Stars or if you're actually dancing. What I want you to do to actually be creating, because in those spaces you find another form of self-expression. And normally what all these negative experiences are difficulty in expressing your own discomfort with life or whatever is bothering you or concerning you. So the Creative 8 mindset reminds us that we are here to be creators, and we are creative every single second. Just to get through the next second, it takes a whole lot of creativity. So I invite people to really do that Creative 8 exercise, which is finding 3 of those things: art, music, dancing, singing, drama, cooking, writing, and gardening, and doing them each day, even for just 1 minute, and really noticing how positive experiences can evolve simply by becoming the creator. Now, ultimately, there was a couple more I added on: photography and cleaning. And then there's the trump card, if you will. And the trump card is to help anybody do anything. And when we're helping other people do things, it's also an amazing experience of having our own concern about ourselves dissolve and disappear as we become service oriented. And that's just another way to use the Creative 8 to our benefit.
All right. So that is true. Let me respond to the last one, the trump card. Yeah, I had some kids in psychiatry, adolescents, they all act out at that, in that age. And the psychiatrist suggested that I set her up, you know, to go and help others. And he felt that that will make her behave better. You know what I mean? So that was one thing. So that's great. Now, the other thing that you mentioned is that, yes, when you're being creative, I guess you're tapping into source, and it does bring joy. But you're saying that, yeah, not only does it bring joy, but it also, kind of puts a stopgap on your negative emotions, right? So that is excellent. So you're saying that they have to do 3 of those, or just one of them can work?
Well, the exercise is, for people who haven't done any of it in a long time, art, music, dancing, singing, drama, cooking, writing, gardening, then yeah, I just ask people to just do them for a minute a day. Just pick 2 or 3 of them and do it for a minute a day for a few days, so that they can get reactivated, really see, oh yeah, it's easy to draw. Or, oh, even if I want to just,
Right.
even that is music. Like, you can just play music.
Right.
Or you can sing in the shower, or you can dance in your room with the door closed, or, like, you can do whatever you need to do. But once you start really cracking open the other ways to self-express, a whole new world can open up, because we count so much on words and listening and interpretations. And that's ultimately a very inefficient way to get our points across. Even though we're all pretty good at talking and listening, we're not as good as we need to be to really get our points across.
Great. Okay. So that's pretty good. Yes, I like that. So what you're saying is, so, I'm looking at the big picture here. So psychiatry, if we're looking at psychiatry now, the creative age mindset, which is basically what I picked the topic of this conversation is that if you've got a creative age mindset, then instead of going towards the Prozac, and instead of going, saying that something is wrong with you, you find a way to creatively express yourself, right? And that is going to kind of put a stopgap on the emotions, your negative emotions, and then sooner or later you'll be off medications. Is that the big picture?
Well, no, sort of, almost.
Okay.
Number one, there's a couple things that I think I would adjust is, it doesn't take away negative emotions. It's just a way to express negative emotions. So, some of the finest artists in the world, in fact, you could make a case that all the finest artists in the world have a fair amount of misery in just speaking their voice and listening to others. That's why they have art as an outlet, even if their outlet is towards a negative experience. Like, you can express, there's nothing wrong with negative experiences. They're just negative experiences. It's that they don't have to go away.
Okay.
They're just once expressed, there is some relief that you have at least expressed your concern or your anger or your sadness or your fear, okay, or the negative experience. That's number one. Number two, if you're already on medicine, it's actually really hard to do the creative aid, because medicine tends to really stifle and smother creativity. The psychopharmacological medications do not expand creativity in any way, shape, or form.
Wow.
So the medications often perpetuate the conditions they're marketed to treat, and it isn't a matter of you do that and you get to come off medicine. It's a matter of, that's a good way to manage your life. And if you want to come off medicine, the best way for that is going to be to start connecting with people. And really, in the case of my coaching, we walk you through to a place where you get to relearn that there was nothing wrong with you in the first place.
Right.
We often blame a log. It's like blaming a log for burning in a fire. It's like, if you put a log in a fire, it's going to burn. If you put a human on this earth, we're going to have misery.
Right.
And it's just the way it is. It's nothing wrong with being miserable. It's not like there's something wrong with you for being afraid for your future, for instance.
Right.
Anyone who's walking the planet right now who isn't afraid for their future has missed out on something, on the one hand. On the other hand, so what? you still have to live right now, even if you're afraid for your future. Can you bottle that up and keep your fear for the future and still be an effective human being today, right now? Still help others, still be creative, still be loving, still be accepting and compassionate and friendly and kind and all those things. Can you do that even in the face of a world that's looking like it's spiraling out of control here?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's good. So yeah, I mean, I think the foundation of what you're teaching is that there's nothing wrong with you. You're just life. And even if you are creative, and you're right, a lot of one of the things that really bothered or was surprising to a lot of people is when Robin, what's his name? The comedian committed suicide.
Robin Williams, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Robin Williams committed suicide because he is there being a creative person, telling jokes, and he was very good, and yet he was still depressed. So that is basically what you're saying, that being creative, you've got an expression of it, but it doesn't mean that you don't have the negative emotion. So that's
something like that. That's right. Humor is often associated. The very best humorists or comics are pretty flippin' miserable underneath it all, and they're just using that same energy to bring that forth. It's not like they're happy folks. It's part of humor is really taking and making fun or having fun with the craziness of what it means to be a human being, after all.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm. Okay.
George Carlin or Richard Pryor. You look at these guys.
Yeah, right.
These are not happy characters. Yeah.
Yeah, they leave a pretty dismal trail. But for someone like me that doesn't understand that, you're thinking that if you're funny, then you're happy. Obviously, that's not the case, right? So everybody was talking about it, including me, about how is it possible that you can be funny and comedic and happy-go-lucky and underneath it. But what you're saying is, you can go down I mean, they didn't commit suicide, which is probably what the difference is. But you're right, a lot of them are taking drugs, and they're very miserable. All right. Yeah. So how can using our voice help with mental illness? It's one of the questions I have here. Right.
Yeah. So I don't know anything else that's going to help with mental illness except using our voice, actually. And the truth is, we think that taking medicine is going to help. And really, in the end, once you're diagnosed with whatever condition you have and you're started on a medication, the medication is frequently designed, or at least achieves the goal of perpetuating the symptoms it's marketed to treat. So you're on that medicine for good. Very few people come off of medicine. When you first start medicine, you think if it's not going to work, we'll just stop it. Well, it's not really true. Mm-hmm. If it's not going to work, we're going to change it, or we're going to increase it, or we're going to add another medicine to it.
Yeah.
Doctors are not even trained to take you off medicine. When I started taking people off medicine, people are like, "You're doing what?"
But I'm sure your patients were happy with that. Yeah.
Well, some of them were scared, because they knew that people get scared. They're like, I don't want to come off. I don't know, because here's the other thing. These medicines are built so that when you do come off of them, at least for a short period of time, you get an actual spike of the symptoms that were there in the beginning. Right. And it has you think that you have returned. But in fact, it's not a you that's returned. It's a function of coming off of these medicines. They're built that way.
Yeah.
So
basically what you're saying is you didn't actually explain that a little bit more. So how does your voice help you to come off of to help you with mental illness? So you have a podcast that it's called True Voice Podcasting. So how does the voice help you with mental illness? Let's use the scenario where you listed a whole range of things there the other day, but one of the things that Prozac does is keep you calm, right? Is that what Prozac does?
Not what I'm saying it does. That's what Prozac says it does. That's not what I'm saying it does.
All right. Okay.
Not at all. Look,
Okay.
here's the thing. Let's use one more analogy to see if we can get on the same page on this, because I think it's real important.
Okay.
If I went to you and you'd say you were a mosquito bite doctor, and I had a really bad mosquito bite on my elbow, and every day, for 3 weeks I've been trying to get rid of it. It gets bigger, it's painful, it's like wakes me up at night, itching, and I finally decide I'm going to go to a mosquito bite specialist. So I find you in the yellow pages, and I go into your office, and you're like, yeah, I've seen something like this before, and we can cure it. I'm like, oh, good. That's why I came to you. It's only going to hurt for a minute, you tell me. I said, okay, let's do it. We're going to cut off your arm at the shoulder.
Oh, wow. That's drastic.
You see, if we stay and I say, okay, and then you cut off my arm, then the next time I come there, when we look for that mosquito bite on that elbow, it won't be there.
No, because you don't have an elbow.
My elbow.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Neither will my arm.
Right.
And if all I'm looking at is, do I have a mosquito bite? The answer is no. And cutting off your arm at the shoulder was a cure for that mosquito bite. If we take this into the psychiatric realm, it's not true that it keeps you calm. It's true that it takes away your emotions. It does do that. It wipes you out, it blunts you out, and it's not just Prozac, by the way. These psychiatric medicines do a lot more than just fix the mosquito bite. So by taking away your capacity to have proper feelings, it feels like it's curing you. But it's not really curing you, it's taking away your capacity to have proper feelings, including that one. So
that
it
was a
looks
great
like
analogy, because now I get it. Wow.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And that's what we're really talking about here. Now, again, to our listeners, if you have been going far and wide and have found a combination of a psychiatrist or a doctor or a therapist and a medicine that works, and you're functioning at the best you could ever hope for, and you can't imagine this, and you disagree with me and all that, it's good for you. Please stay on your regimen. If you got it going on, by all means, what I have to say isn't for you. It's for the millions, actually hundreds of millions of people who know that they don't have it going on, that this message is for.
Okay.
People know that they're not living the life that they want or that they deserve. They are living a restricted, constricted life. And many people hate their medications. Many people hate their medications and don't even agree with their diagnosis. And if you don't agree with your diagnosis and you hate your medications and your life isn't going good, well, maybe I have something for you then.
Yeah.
But if you have,
you want to do something different, right?
Right. You got to want to, if you want to stay the same, I'm not kidding. I love you. It's great work. It's not like you're wrong and I'm right. No. If you found something, you're good with it, please stay on and keep hammering away at it. It's great. It's only for the people who are pretty sure that there's been that they're muted or they're muffled or they're stifled. And that's where true voice comes in. When you're speaking with another person, your mental health improves considerably. Now, I don't use the phrase mental illness anymore. I don't have it that there's such thing actually inherently as mental illness. There's definitely such thing as mental discomfort, mental misery, mental pain, for sure. But illness suggests that you're sick. And I don't think that you're sick. You're only experiencing an unpleasant part of life. Now, when we start looking at that, then in true voice, actually voicing your real self, it's amazing how healing can happen immediately. And why I chose podcasting to be the avenue for that is because you can say your true voice right here in a podcast. It's one of the last remaining spaces on the planet where you can actually say your true voice. You can't do it on social media, obviously. You can't do it, in most cases, you can't go to a concert and do it. You can't have an auditorium full of people to speak your voice anymore. So your true voice is being taken away from you. And when or you're giving it up. True voice is the way when you resonate with another person and truly, honestly, authentically connect with another person. It's amazing what that does instantly for your mental health. Even if you haven't connected with anyone in a long time, when you do connect, it's amazing what healing takes place. Way better than any medication I've ever written. And like I said, I've written over 100,000 medications.
All right, well, explain it a little bit. So what happens when they come on your podcast and talk about their true voice? What are they talking about? What are the conversations?
Yeah, the True Voice podcasting is not a pod. It is a podcast, but it's not what you're speaking towards. The True Voice podcast is actually a course. It's actually a course that I teach, so that people who want to express their true voice will learn that they can do that best through podcasting. We spend the first half of the course, of a 13-week course, really honing in people to getting in touch and rediscovering their true voice, authenticity. And in that authenticity, really exploring, like in your case, you love mindset. Somewhere along the line, mindset became part of your true voice. Mm-hmm. When you start doing that, you can wake up every single day like, who am I going to talk to today about mindset? And there's something that drives you forward inside of, your commitment to learning more and to teaching more about mindset.
Right.
So other people, they're going to come up with whatever they come up with. Maybe some of them will come up with really big ones like, I don't know, climate change or racism or sex trafficking. And maybe others will come up with smaller ones, with seemingly smaller ones, like petunias in Arkansas or something. It's fine, whatever your podcast theme is. We then walk you through your authenticity into a world of a maximum podcast creation and production. I have a couple teammates who co-lead with me, and we take people from 0 to podcaster in 3 months, and then people from podcaster to broadcaster in another 3 months, where we get them monetized and we get them sponsored, and we get that, if that's what they want to do for a living, we can help them get all of that done, creating really high-powered world-class productions.
I love it. I did not think that's where it was going at all, but I love it because so what you're saying is if you're passionate about something and you have a connection to it, then you want to come on a podcast and talk about it. And that's what everybody is doing because the podcasting world is just growing by leaps and bounds. I know there's only over 2 million podcasts now, but there must be some kind of statistic that talks about how many new ones come on every day because people, are passionate about something and they want to go talk about it. So you're teaching them how to become a podcaster by connecting to something that they love, and it's their true voice. I love it.
Exactly.
Did I miss anything, or that's basically what you're doing?
That's really well said. I think the thing here is, some people think that if they interview the next door neighbor who used to be the ex-coach of the football team, and then the mayor from a neighboring city, and then like a TV star or something, that they now have a podcast, and they, and so they think that someday, somewhere, somehow, someone will find them. Right. What we really teach is to start from the ground up, so that you design your podcast to meet some certain criteria and, be driven on mission and pillars and have a purpose as well as an intro and an outro and the proper bumpers and the proper advertisements, music and show notes, etc. So that we can really help someone express their truest voice and create a podcast that's not only fun and powerful, but sustainable and scalable.
Yes, I love it. So yes, that's basically it because, right. So when they come into your course, do they already know what they want, or do you not have a way of helping them discover that?
Oh yeah, no, there are some people who came into the course who don't even know what a podcast is. I mean, they didn't even listen to a podcast, and so there's other people who don't even know how to do a Facebook Live or how to do a Zoom call. They don't know. So we take people from wherever they are into being podcasters. There's just other people who come into the course and they're pretty sure that they have their theme. They're super interested in racism or super interested in climate change or super interested in some particular topic, and they think that's going to be their podcast.
Mhm.
We really help them get to what is the problem that they're solving, what is their, what are some of the questions, and what are the solution, what's the actual solution. And we
Mhm.
help people take a theme into their podcast, coming up with a title and, again, the proper show art and the proper music,
Mhm.
so that it's all branded properly.
That's nice.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like that. That's
yeah.
beautiful.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So, but let's tie it in together. Um, so you feel that if someone was to do this and they have a mental health issue, then it stops the noise. It doesn't stop it all totally, but it quiets the noise.
Interesting. So it's sort of like a different population. This isn't necessarily for those people who have diagnoses or anything like that. Look,
Okay.
there's no difference from the people who have diagnoses to the people who don't. These are just
Okay.
people. They're just people. Everyone
Okay.
is just a person.
Okay.
So it isn't a matter of using my podcasting course to decrease the noise or anything like that at all. Now, the truth is, when we start in real life, it does decrease the noise because we become more aligned with what we're saying, and who we're saying it to. As
Yeah.
you already know, when you get to be your true self, all the noise, the self-talk, the hatred, and all that goes away when you're really
Yeah.
being your true self.
Right.
So podcasting is a great exercise to really go out and explore who is this true self of yours and how can you make an impact and really direct this, distribute it to people who are ready to hear or learn. It's not necessarily for otherwise people who are on medications or anything like that. It's more for anyone who's interested in getting their true voice out there, because true voice ultimately is what ends all wars.
Right. Yeah. And talking from personal experience, I love what I do, and it does make me happy. It makes me happy because I feel that I am, I'm contributing to the world in some way.
Exactly.
And yeah, it does make me happy. So I can say that that is absolutely the truth.
Exactly. Exactly. It is the
Right.
truth, and it's
Yeah.
great. And it's a real opportunity to just, now is the time to speak our true voice. We have major problems in the world. The virus or climate change or racism or sex trafficking or
Or the
even war.
war, right?
Yeah, it's a really big deal. And
Right.
none of them are bigger than the fact that we're not speaking our true voice. The
Right.
biggest threat in the world right now is not any of those. It's that we have given up our true voice. And
Right.
without our true voice, we're never going to get around any of those other issues. Those
Mhm.
other issues are going to eat us up if we don't speak our own true voice. They just are. This is doomsday. It's over. If we can't speak up about this, it's over.
Yeah.
And so now is the time to really find that true voice. And that's really what's here inside of the course. Now, I recently wrote another book. The book I wrote, I know it's going to shock you, the title. Let me see. It's called Find Your True Voice. And
A real shocker.
a shocker. And it's a great book. I can offer it to your listeners, by the way. If they want to learn a little bit more about what I'm talking about, go take a deeper dive and really learn how this method works. If you go to findyourtruevoicebook.com, and then you go in there, and then I will send you a copy of the book for free, actually, for being a listener of the show. And if you want, after reading it, you want to talk to me a little bit more about how I can be of some assistance, either with you or your family, or to speak to a club, or to be on your podcast, or to help you create a podcast, or whatever you want. It's not all about podcasting. It's all about finding a way to get that true voice out in the world. And I just don't know a better, more effective way to do it on a global scale than putting together a podcast or being a guest on someone else's podcast.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I got that. Findyourtruevoicebook.com. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So you had given us another website earlier. It's welcometohumanity.com, right?
.net,
So those are your
.net.
two.
That one is
Those
.net.
are your two websites. Okay. All right.
And then there's a third one. The third one is the upcoming summit. I have a summit that's starting on Saturday. It's going for 6 weeks. We'll have at least 3 separate Saturdays, probably 4. And the summit is called the We the People Summit. So it's wethepeoplesummit.online. Wethepeoplesummit.online. And that's where you can sign up for that. And even if it's after the date, feel free to sign up. There's more coming. And what we're doing is we have assembled over 24, and I'm looking, probably it'll be 100 by the time the whole thing is over. Really major inspirational influencers who are telling us how they became influencers.
Okay.
What I'm learning from each and every one of them is that the way they became influencers is first by getting in touch with their own true voice. And so we're helping people get that they themselves, as audience, the listeners, are already influencers. All they have to do is get in touch with their true voice and bring it forward to even one person.
Yeah.
And then you're an influencer. You don't need to have 1 million followers. You don't need to have $1 million. You don't need to be Oprah Winfrey or, Jason or
Kardashians.
You don't. You don't. You can be
Yeah,
anyone.
right. Mm. Yeah.
And so all the donations from that are going to the war-torn, devastated people of Ukraine war.
Ukraine. Yeah. That is just, that is awesome. All right. So, what is your social media handle?
Oh, I can be found on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter and it's Dr. Fred Moss, Dr.
Okay,
Fred
so it's
Moss.
just your name, right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Okay.
But
All right.
really, the circle community is where you're really going to find me from now on, and that's true-voice.circle.so. That's like a super cool Facebook. It's a really cool way to get out of Facebook and still get all the qualities of Facebook.
Okay. So that was true dash what?
True-voice.
Voice. Okay.
.circle.so.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, Dr. Moss, was an incredible interview. I learned a few things about how the Creative 8 can help you, as far as your emotion, channeling them. Then of course we ended up by talking about true voice podcasting, and I'm in that space as well, where this is my true voice that's coming out, and it I love it. It helps me for sure, with my emotions and my happiness and my mental health and all those things. So I understand totally what you're doing, and it's great that you are helping people to put something like that together, because I'm a life coach, and there was a time when everybody wanted to be a life coach, but now everybody wants to be a podcaster. So
You're right.
I'm in two of the spaces that is growing by leaps and bounds.
Right, exactly. It's great. It's great that you're on the front edge of both those things.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
So it's a great thing that if you can help somebody to put that together. So that's awesome. So I definitely appreciate our conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life. A transcript of my conversation with Dr. Fred would be on the show page, which is blog.myhelps.us. And if you missed any of the links, then they would also be on the show page as well, with links to all the different ways that you can connect with Dr. Moss. So so definitely go out there and find your true voice. And if you learned anything about medications, one of the things that I know Dr. Fred said, that if you're on it and it's medication and it's doing well for you, stay on it. But when you heard that cutting off your arm analogy, you should revisit that, because if it's going to make you into a zombie, then maybe it's not the way to go.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Any circle back on that?
That's right. Yeah, no, the same thing. It's it looks like it helps because you no longer have an itchy mosquito bite, but you also don't have an arm anymore. And if you pay attention, you won't even notice that you don't have an arm. It's other people who will notice that you flattened out. Yeah. Very similar to, if you come to me for a bleeding cut, and I give you a Band-Aid and it covers the cut, but in the Band-Aid, there's a razor blade embedded. Eventually your cut is going to ooze out the side of that Band-Aid, and you're going to think that it's your cut and not the treatment. The truth is, the treatment itself causes frequently a worsening of the original condition.
Wow. Yes. So listen, you have expanded our mind on that. And they
Good.
say that a mind expanded can never be returned. So
Yep.
take the
Can't unring the
information
bell.
that you
Yep. Yep.
take the information that you hear on today and do something with it.
Yep.
All right, Dr. Moss. Well, listen, thanks again for coming on the show. Thanks again for tuning in. And, if you're listening to this on iTunes, we'd appreciate if you rate and review, and definitely subscribe to the show. All right. So thanks again for tuning in. And until next time, namaste.